Welcome to Masters of Growth for Plaintiff Law Firms. This is where we sit down and talk to industry leaders to bring you lessons, stories, and insights that will help you grow your revenue, margins, and the happiness that you have at work. Our guest today is the CEO of Estrin Legal Staffing, which is a nationwide staffing organization. She's also involved with MetaSums, doing medical record summarization. She was the president and founding member of the Organization of Legal Professionals. She's held executive positions with law firms, litigation support companies, and she was also the senior vice president of a legal staffing division of a $5 billion publicly held corporation. Must be a lot of hiring going on there. She's also been acknowledged as one of the top 50 women leaders in Los Angeles, and her expertise has been sought out by journalists at the Wall Street Journal, Fortune Magazine, CBS News, Forbes, Law 360, LA Times, Newsweek. I can keep going. There's many more. Those are some of the big ones. She's also written 10 influential books centered around legal careers, along with her blog, The Estrin Report. I welcome to the podcast, Chere Estrin. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to chat with you, Chere.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Let's go.
Let's jump into it.
Let's go.
Maybe start off, just tell me and the audience just a little bit about your firm, Estrin Legal Staffing, the types of firms that you work with, maybe a high level start there, then dig into some of the topics.
Sure. We've been around 30 years, although people are asking me when I'm going to retire. So now I'm saying 25 plus years and acknowledging I'm a woman of a certain age. But we have been around for a long time. All of our recruiters hail from law firms around the country. So all of our recruiters understand the nuances of legal recruiting. We handle the law firms, which are, for those of you who might not know, are the top revenue producing firms in the country. Many of them are worldwide. We also do international placing as well. And we handle PI firms, plaintiff firms, defense firms, in-house legal departments. We'll place attorneys, contract attorneys, paralegals, intake people, legal assistants, anything and everything that walks and talks as a professional in a law firm.
That's fantastic. Bit of everything. That's really awesome. And given just the view that you have working with all those different firms across the country and also internationally, just with the economy now and everything going on, like what is the labor market right now for law firms? Is it more employer favored market, easier to hire people, or talent favored market? Like how are you just seeing the market in general?
This is the toughest market we have ever seen, ever. Right now, across the board, in the corporate world, the unemployment rate is just inching up to 4%. Anytime it's 4% or below, it's a candidate tight market. In the legal field, right now, today, as we speak, it's under 1%. It's actually at 0.06%. So what does that mean to you as an employer? Candidates are impossible to get. What they're doing is the good ones go in 10 days, literally in 10 days. They're getting counter offers, multiple offers, or they just decide to stay where they are. It's very difficult right now to find really good employees with experience. Entry level, not a problem. So what this means is that if you are looking for somebody, you got to hurry up. You can't be what they used to say, dilly-dallying, right? But you can't wait. You can't wait. If you get a good candidate, you have to act on it immediately because the stats are, I'm not just making this up, they're gone. 10 days. That's it.
That's incredible. I did not realize that. Is that, out of curiosity, like, do you know if that's the same across non-legal business operator hires as well as lawyers as well? Is it roughly the same, or is it harder to hire in one than the other?
No, it's by non-legal. I think you're saying non-lawyers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. The 2 to 5 year associate, forget it. Okay. Impossible to find. Can you find them? Sure. I'm not saying never, never, never. Attorneys, extremely hard to find. They're asking for more money than they've ever asked for before. During COVID, the salaries went way up. What we were seeing was incredible signing bonuses, whatever it took. Now we're not seeing that. We're not seeing the signing bonus so much anymore. I see it on occasion. I just placed a paralegal director at $265,000 at a major firm. They'll give him a signing bonus, relocation, but that's highly unusual. So the salaries have come down a little bit, not a lot. You may feel that you're paying more than you should. Okay. But that's what the market is demanding right now. But across the board, attorneys, directors of administration, intake, paralegals are very difficult to find. Very difficult.
Fascinating. So I guess given the difficulty of the market in hiring and just how tight the market is, what does a really good hiring process look like? Like, are you able to share your thoughts on the anatomy of a good process from start to finish?
I could go on forever. How much time do we have? This is where most firms fall down. Not that I'm being critical, but let me be critical. This is where most of the firms fall down. The first thing that they do is they wait. Okay, they wait. They'll get a candidate in, they'll get a resume in. Maybe it goes to HR, looks at it, sends it to the hiring manager, looks at it, sits on it, sends it back to HR. And in the meantime, a whole lot of time has gone by. So that's the first thing that's wrong about the hiring process. The second thing is if you're working with a staffing organization, you don't treat them very well. A lot of firms don't treat them very well. They forget that a staffing agency goes to work for you. So what that means is most of them are on contingency, except for executive search. So what that means is they spend time, money, okay, in recruiting, and then the firm doesn't get back to them. So what happens is you lose your staffing organization. It's like radio silence, okay, for whatever reason. It's not important enough. They're busy. We get that. But what happens is the staffing agency doesn't want to work with you anymore. They don't, because they get paid when they place. So to keep filling the cookie jar is not going to win you friends. The second thing on the candidate, what we call giving the candidates a good candidate experience. If you're not giving them a good candidate experience, meaning you're prompt to get back to them, you give them feedback or you give the agency feedback, they don't want to work with you. They just don't want to work with you. The legal field is really a very small community, even though there's 1 million lawyers out there, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very small community. We can put all the ads in Indeed or LinkedIn that we want, but people talk. They talk, and there's social media. So what happens is a candidate will say, oh, geez, I tried to go to Wines and Coffee and I had a miserable experience. They didn't get back to me. They didn't give me any feedback. They didn't move me forward, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens is you get a bad reputation. And I have firms out there where I pitch to a candidate, look, we've got this great job going at Acme, and they'll say, I don't want to go there. Oh, why don't you want to go there? Because my friend had a horrible experience there. Also, there's Glassdoor. Now, this can be your enemy or it can be your best friend. A lot of firms don't really look at Glassdoor. It's one of your most important recruiting tools that you can have. You have to get good reviews on Glassdoor. All of the candidates today go to Glassdoor and they check it out. And if your rating is bad, they don't want to go there. They don't want to go there. High turnover firm. There's a green-eyed monster in the corner office that they won't get rid of, all kinds of things. So what you're going to have to do is give that candidate a reason to come to your firm. What is the reason they want to come to your firm? And also, because of the tight market, you're going to have to pitch, and you as an employer are going to have to sell your firm. What is it about your firm that makes you different? Why should I come there? Why should I come there? Why should I leave my perfectly good, cushy job and go to your firm? Or even if I'm miserable and crying in the shower every morning, I'm not coming to your firm. Okay. So reputation is everything in the hiring process. How you treat the candidates, extremely important. I have a major firm, honest to God, they interviewed a patent paralegal, very hard to get, in January. In May, I got an email from the firm that says we've decided to pass on Jane Doe. Are you nuts? That candidate was so far long gone. Patent paralegal, hard to get. There may be a handful of them around the country. Are you nuts? You think that the candidate A wanted your job and B was going to stick around? No way. And then what happens is the firms tend to hire more staffing agencies because they think they're not getting what they want, but they're really not responding. Okay, they're not responding. So I have some firms that have 40 agencies that they try to deal with. 40 agencies. Not so good. Okay, not so good. And then agencies have the blacklist. Okay, truthfully, they won't send candidates to certain firms because of high turnover, because of the way that the candidates are treated. So you're giving your candidate a good experience is very important to recruit the best candidates possible. The best candidate possible. Also, you may put an ad in Indeed or LinkedIn. You're going to get the apply anyway candidate. Okay, you could get maybe 100 resumes and maybe 2 are right. Okay, in this market, it's the apply anyway. We're going to get baristas, warehouse supervisors, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against people wanting to move up, but they'll apply for anything. Okay, for anything. Right. And so you've got to be so on top of your candidate processing system that the word gets out that people want to go, yeah, I want to go to that firm. Oh, absolutely. I absolutely want to go. So PR in the candidate processing system is key. That's how you get good candidates.
That's so interesting. I think the best companies at hiring treat hiring like a sales process. Like sometimes I feel like there's often, not just in legal, but in a lot of industries where there's almost this ego of like, why should we hire you? When in reality, in a really tight labor market, it's more about why should you work for, what is my value prop to you, right? Like they're not thinking about it correctly, it sounds like.
Right.
And in a tight labor market, you got to move quickly. So you said a few things there, which are really interesting. So one, not moving fast enough just to give a good candidate experience to get back to people. 2, not getting back to the staffing agencies you're working with and just going dark for periods of time. You know, that's true, but like prioritize the hiring that you're trying to do. And it sounds like a third one is just the actual culture. And if you build a reputation of having high turnover and bad culture, whatever, that word's going to get out anyway, which makes it harder to hire down the road. Getting all those things right seem quite critical if you're going to be successful hiring.
I did have, I don't anymore, but the attitude used to be pre-COVID, hey, we're Acme and Acme. They should be lucky they even got an interview with us.
Right.
Okay. That's changed. So we have to drop that big ego, okay, and recognize the market for what it is. Will it change? Sure. Every 5 years it changes. Okay. It swings back and forth. That's what happens. If we get anything over 4%, it's going to swing back, okay, to an employer's market. But right now, not the case. What
do you think? This just dovetails in another question I had for you and I'm curious about. I see a lot of law firms have this kind of individual contributor mindset, like they're focused on the individual contributor work, when really you kind of hit the point. I don't know what the exact revenue number is, but there's a point at which you need to, and this isn't again just law, anyone that's an entrepreneur starting a business, there's this like maker manager dilemma where you're the maker, you make the thing, you cook the sausage, but eventually you have to hire people, develop people, retain people. How should people think about making that transition to everything that you mentioned? Seems more like systems and business processes and culture and things like that. And I imagine the reason those problems exist is because the leaders in those firms are maybe thinking individual contributor mindset rather than business owner. How do I build a system? Like, how could people sort of make that transition?
The problem is ego, and quite frankly, and the entrepreneur mindset, in that if I don't do it myself, it's not going to get done properly. And what I learned years and years ago, actually a great mentor in the legal field taught me, always delegate to the lowest competent level. That's how you succeed. Delegate to the lowest competent level. So let's say you are the managing attorney, head of the department, and you feel that you want to be doing these things yourself. That eats into your profit. that eats into your revenue stream. If you start delegating to the lowest competent level, that clears you and lets you move up to a higher level of assignment. Okay. Less stress, quite frankly. And truthfully, people below you are going to do the job better. I don't know too many attorneys who can do a paralegal job. I don't. It's a different animal. It's a very different animal. In fact, I know paralegals who teach the associates, right? And the legal assistants teach the associates. So if you're not delegating to the lowest competent level, you're eating into your own profit. That's exactly what happens. You have to get rid of that mentality. It's very hard for some people who are control freaks, okay? Because they really feel if they don't do it, it's not going to get done properly. Train your people. Train your people the way you want to do it. That's all you have to do, but start growing the business. And if you want to merge, if you want to sell your company, very few people are going to merge with a law firm where it's one person doing everything. Not going to happen. What they want to see is the level of management. Okay. That's what they want to see because you're probably not going to be there forever. I hate to break this to you. It's not that you're going to die. That's not what I'm saying. But at some point, you move on. I always say in my webinars, a job is not a marriage. At some point, you move on. So you're not even making yourself available for mergers, acquisition, anything like that. If you want to think like a business owner, think like a business owner. How am I going to grow this business? It's not by me doing everything. Not going to happen. And again, you're eating into your revenue. Worst thing you could possibly do.
When you say delegate to the lowest competent level, I can imagine some attorneys being maybe fearful of that because it's like they won't do it as well as I can, or low competency means they're not going to do a good job and the client's going to be upset. But I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is like who's, maybe the lowest person on the ladder, maybe from a salary perspective, that can execute this at a good level. And then how do I train more people to execute this at a good level so that it's not the partners of the law firm doing all these things?
Let's look at it this way. Okay. Except for the firm, well, even the firms that are on contingency. Let's take an associate. Okay. And the associate is now summarizing depositions, summarizing medical records, bait stamping. Okay. Taking notes, setting up depositions, right? All of this can be delegated to the lowest competent level. What is the lowest competent level? A paralegal. And who will probably do it a lot better. Now, if that associate is spending billable time or even valuable time, saying you're on contingency, doing that level of work, they're not going to be able to win your case. They're not going to be able to spend the time that's necessary doing the research, doing the pleadings, appearing in court. They don't have the time. They just don't have the time. So by the lowest competent level, what I mean is the level below you. Okay, where can we delegate, get rid of the assignments that are routine and repetitious and should go to somebody at a lower level, whether that's a paralegal, a legal assistant, an intake person, liens, settlement, whatever that is. Okay, get rid of the assignments that can be done more competently than you. That's what you need to do. You're going to up your revenue. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
That makes so much sense. And
in fact, I bet you 25 cents. I never go more than 25 cents, but I'm going to bet you 25 cents you're going to up your revenue. And so anybody who wants to take that bet, reach out to me. Absolutely reach out to me.
That makes total sense. It's funny, in my last company, one of my investors and board members gave me some advice. And, I was an entrepreneur and a founder and building up a team and scaling, and everybody kind of faces this, right? You hold on to things, you hold on and you own things. And he said, Julian, you need to do only what only you can do. So what are the things that only you can do, and everything else give to somebody else? And then try to make the things that only you can do less and less and less and less, so that you can spend all of your time thinking about how you're building this machine that is a business rather than being in the weeds like you're talking about. So yeah, that totally resonates with me. I love that.
Oh, look, for example, it's not that I do everything right. I do have a hall of shame. Back in 1990, July, Tuesday it was. I remember when I made a mistake, right? And I was writing our own ads, our own advertising. And I was going on Canva and I was doing this because I didn't want to pay the big fees for an advertising agency. So what I did was I found a fabulous agency who does a bang up job in Pakistan. And they do an incredible job and they charge me $500 a month. Okay. I can't afford not to have that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got rid of something that was taking away from my recruiting time, my building the business, my talking to new clients, the whole area that I should be doing. I shouldn't be writing ads. Okay. But I was afraid I wasn't going to find an agency that I could afford. Not true. Look a little harder. Spend a little more time looking for what you need. I learned that the hard way.
It makes total sense. I think we all go through learning that lesson at some point. That reminds me of another topic that I think we touched on and not on recording, I think, when we last spoke. But what do you think of as maybe some unconventional great places to find non-lawyer talent, whether it be intake leaders, intake people, operations leaders, marketers, advertisers, whatever? I feel like it's natural just to look within the industry and try to find people who've done that in the industry. But are there any tips or advice that you have for finding great talent, non-lawyer talent?
Yeah, it depends on what you need. For example, if you need an entry-level paralegal, don't go to a staffing agency and be charged a significant fee for an entry-level paralegal. Go to the paralegal schools. Most of them have placement offices. They'll give them to you for free. Go to the colleges. They have placement offices. Go to the paralegal associations, intake people. This is where you really do need a staffing agency because they can headhunt for you. Okay, that means they'll go to your competitor and pull somebody out of there where you can't really do that. They don't really like that. So that's a way of doing it. Put an ad in the groups on LinkedIn. For example, I own 10 groups, and it's not that I want you to not use me. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm a business person here. But the groups in LinkedIn, put an ad. Okay, you will get response. Now, you're going to get the apply anyway candidate, as I mentioned before. Okay, that's part of it. But go to the groups in LinkedIn. Excellent way to find people and not have to pay anything for them. Indeed is good, but again, you'll get 100 resumes and maybe 2 are right. Okay. Right. Those are really good ways. And then tap into your network. Get involved in the groups in LinkedIn. Get known. Tap into your network. Get a network. Okay. Get a network where all you have to do is put an ad out there to your network and you will get a response. I have 80,000 people on my network. 80,000. Okay. Sure. It's not as big as a $5 billion company. I get that, but I've got 80,000 good ones. Almost all good ones. Okay. Maybe not all good ones, but I have 80,000 people I can reach out to. Okay. Why? Because over the years, I've built a network that I can reach out to. I have a subscriber list. I have a mailing list. I have a blog. My blog is an award-winning blog that's been in existence since 2005. I'll get anywhere from 5 to 10,000 hits, depending on, pardon my words, how sexy the topic is. Okay. And I'll get good candidates because these are the candidates that are reading, that want to know, that are interested in learning. So they're all different kinds of ways that you can search for good candidates.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot. I could go on and on and on.
That makes total sense. When you're hiring those candidates, do you have any thoughts on hiring for experience versus potential? And is there a best practices you have there? If you're hiring for potential, are there things you need to have in place maybe to train those people? Is it not a good thing to do in some situations? Just curious your thoughts on that in general.
Unless you're an AM law firm with a training department, I don't like to see people trained on the job unless they're somebody like a receptionist that's going to move up, that sort of thing. The reason why I don't like it is because you're only as good as your trainer. And most people in law firms are not good trainers. They think, oh, sure, we're going to bring that person in and train them. But they're not a professional trainer. So you're only as good as your trainer. And what happens is, let me give this an example. I'm a 10, you're a 10, everybody in this room is a 10, okay? So we're going to train somebody, but we're going to train somebody who's a 9. Why? Because I don't need anybody quite as good as me, and they're not as experienced as me, so I'm a 9. You train the 9, and the 9 says, you know what? I'm a 9, you're a 9, everybody in the room is a 9, okay? So I'm going to train the next person coming in, but they train an 8. Okay. And the 8 trains a 7. So what happens is what you call degenerative training. And unless you have professional trainers on your staff, it's not a good idea. Not a good idea. If you want to, for example, bring them in and train them, great. But what's your plan? Most law firms do not have a training program. What they have is an ad hoc situation. I'm going to show them how to do interrogs. I'm going to show them how to do intake, but they don't have an effective training program. And unless you have an effective training program, really don't do it. I know a lot of you have had success at doing it, and you've got a lot of people you can point to, but it's not the best way of doing it. It really isn't. And I've been training for years now. I do a lot of training. Right now, I only do rah-rah. I only do content-free, motivational, and on careers. But it's very important that you get the right trainer. Very, very important. Right. Or send these folks out to classes and courses. What courses can you send them to? There are plenty out there. Plenty. And for a couple of $100, it's worth the investment. I prefer hiring experienced over potential. You don't know what the potential is going to be. You have no way of knowing. It's the great unknown. Whereas bringing somebody in with experience, you stand a better chance of succeeding. Right. I'm very adamant about that, only because I've seen a lot of poor training.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And even if it works out, sometimes maybe it's because that person happened to have a great attitude and great aptitude and all these things, but to do it scalably without a great training program, you're definitely gonna run into some problems.
See, the thing is this: when I ask a law firm, okay, you want to train somebody, what's your plan? Okay, well, we're going to train this person. How are you going to get there? They don't know.
Yeah, makes sense.
They don't know. Yeah.
What do you think about it? I talked to a lot of firms that are thinking about or have hired or thinking about hiring someone who's kind of like a chief operating officer, someone who can sort of run the business aspect of things. There's a lot of people talking about this, which I think makes a ton of sense. But where do you find that talent? And what do you think about fractional talent for some of these executive roles, whether it be a COO fractional or CFO fractional?
Well, it's two questions. So the first one is a COO or a CEO is a great idea. Why? Because as an attorney, you're not trained about business in law school. You're just not. Maybe your undergrad was business administration, something of that nature. But most lawyers are not business people. They understand how to practice law. So I think it's a great idea to bring in a COO or CEO. Even a director of administration, if you want to go a little bit lower than that, is a better idea. These folks can take care of the hiring. They can take care of the budget. They can take care of forecasting, the financial end of it. Forecasting, very important. They can tell you ahead of time whether you're headed for trouble. It's an excellent idea. Now, the latest thing is this fractional position. I've been looking at this. There isn't any difference between this and a part-time person, although everybody's saying it's not a part-time position. What it is, somebody who has other clients, okay, they come in and for either a short period of time or a long period of time, they only devote so many hours to your firm. And maybe that's all you need. Maybe you're a small firm. Okay. And you really don't need a full-time CEO or COO. A fractional is a great idea. Where do you find them? I would really go to an executive search agency or an agency like mine. We do a lot of the C-suite, but go to somebody who has experience in the legal field, because somebody coming over from something like manufacturing, healthcare, they don't understand the nuances, and the nuances of a law firm are very important. Can they pick it up? Sure. But what is your ramp up time? How much money are you going to spend while this person ramps up? My suggestion is to get somebody with legal firm background. I think that's the best way to go. But a COO, very important. The better law firms, small, large, major, have CEOs or COOs in place. And it's a great idea.
That makes a lot of sense. And one or maybe two other questions. First, how should firms think about finding a recruiting partner? If they're going to hire a recruiting firm, are there things that they should be looking for? Red flags, green flags? What are your thoughts there?
Having sold my first company to a $5 billion company and then running their legal division, I don't like knocking my competitor, but let me tell you a little bit about those companies. They hire people who don't necessarily have legal background. And what they do, their motivation is to take these recruiters, and they only have them 3 weeks on one aspect of the job. So they're 3 weeks, they're for 3 weeks, they look for job orders. Then they transfer to looking for candidates and interviewing those candidates. And then they transfer to 3 weeks for working the orders. That way, if they leave and they have a tremendous turnover, they can't take the client with them because they didn't get close enough to the law firm. Okay, so they really can't take that client with them. A smaller agency is great as long as, my opinion is, they're only doing legal. All right. They're not spread out doing healthcare, IT, warehouse, that sort of thing. They only specialize in legal, and their recruiters come from law firms. It's very important because a lot of the larger agencies say, well, the recruiting is recruiting. Well, not so much. Okay. You have to really understand the nuances. For example, let's take an intake person. What does that person need to know? Okay. It's not just taking down information. They need to know when to spot a great client. Okay. What is it about the case that the potential client is telling you that you perk up and say, okay, we can do this. So looking for an agency, look for somebody who maybe has been in business a little while, but a lot of the startups are pretty good. I'm not really knocking that, but look for somebody who has a tremendous amount of contacts. More than anything, again, you don't want somebody just placing what we call post and pray. Okay, so that's putting an ad in Indeed and praying that the right candidate will come along. You need somebody who's going to do the headhunting, who knows the firms, who knows not to send a PI paralegal to a civil litigation firm or vice versa because they don't understand the differences. Workers' comp, okay? They're sending workers' comp person to civil litigation or vice versa. You need to know somebody who can spot that immediately. That's key for quick recruiting and accurate recruiting. So be very careful and vet those people. Vet them. Who are your clients? Who do you work for? How many placements do you get? Where do you get your candidates? What we do is we do the old-fashioned headhunting. We go one by one by one. We look at other firms. We have a whole host of software programs that will tell us what intake person, what paralegal, what marketing person is working at what firm, and then we'll go after them. You can't do that. Okay, you can, but you're going to get a lot of flack. So find an agency that is well situated in the legal community, has recruiters with legal background, and has a huge network. That's important, that they can tap into their network. Now, be very careful, because what a lot of firms think is that the recruiters have this old-fashioned big black file cabinet, right? And then you put the order in, and all the recruiter has to do is pull open that drawer, and out come all these resumes, okay? That's not what's happening in this market. Again, tight market, we have to go after them maybe one by one by one. So be very careful when you choose a staffing agency. Make sure they have a good reputation. Check them out on Google Review. We have a 5-star rating. We earned that. Okay, we earn that the hard way. I don't take on every client. I don't. And the reason I don't is if I feel that the client isn't going to cooperate with us, that's going to give us radio silence, that maybe we can't, they're asking for a unicorn that I can't place. Okay. Or maybe the salaries are so far out of whack, meaning under, not over, that there's no way I'm going to be able to find somebody for that. So your agency should be on top of all of that. They really should. And they shouldn't just be taking orders to take orders. Not going to do you any good. Not going to do you any good.
Yeah, that is super helpful advice. Chere, one final question. If people want to get in touch with you, see more of your content, contact you, work with you, where can people find you?
We're at Estrin, Estrin, legalstaffing.com. And I am Chere, Chere, at estrinlegalstaffing.com. And if you want to meet with us, what we do when we're meeting a new client, I bring my whole team. I bring my whole team to a Zoom meeting so that everybody on my staff understands who you are, what it is that you need, the ins and outs of your position, the nuances, what makes you different. We do a whole thorough intake on the firm, and everybody on my staff gets to know you. So please, even if you just need some advice, look me up. If I don't have the answer, I probably know where to point you. And then also read my blog, estrinreport.com.
I love it. I was going to say also check out your content because you're putting out a lot of content. So I will put all of that in the show notes. So there'll be links to everything that Chere just mentioned. And this conversation has been wonderful. And there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom in here. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Chere.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.